Then I'd like to invite you to a book talk on Thursday, May 30th with Jennifer Horn, who will present on her new book, Odyssey of a Wandering Mind, The Strange Tale of Sarah Mayfield. That is once again going to be live in our Farley Auditorium, but it will also stream here to our platforms. Lastly, I'd like to make sure you're aware that we're going to have summer genealogy workshops again. There are going to be 2 this summer, and we'll be opening registration after Memorial Day. So be on the lookout for those summer genealogy workshops. Now, without further ado, I'm excited to welcome Carlie Anne Burkett, one of our reference archivists, who's going to talk about surname files. Welcome, Carlie Anne.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me, and I hope that you're going to enjoy our research rundown today on surname files. So let's get started. So what is a surname file? Surname files are often found at libraries, archives, historical societies, or other genealogical hotspots. You can find them here at the Alabama Department of Archives and History in our reference room. Surname files are typically also referred to as subject guides or vertical files. Some of you may be familiar with that terminology, and some of you may not be. We kind of flip-flop that terminology around here. Typically, we call them subject files, but vertical files works too. These are a collection of documents and other items that are often stored in file folders inside cabinets or archival boxes. They are often organized by subject or surname. So subject files or vertical files can be on numerous different things. These in particular are surnames, but we have some here that are about governors. We have some here that are about counties, general topics, and things of that nature. So you never know what you can find in vertical files. They can be a wealth of information, and there can be many, many different types. So, surname files here at the Alabama Department of Archives and History. So, as I said before, there are many different topics that we have here. In conversation, we will typically refer to them as subject or vertical files, but their actual name, if you were to search for them in our catalog, would be public information subject files, which is quite a mouthful. And we have these on general topics, surnames, counties, Civil War, governors, so many different topics. The surname file collection is one of the most used, if not the most used, and it is the most easily accessible of all of our subject guides. It can include newspaper articles, wedding invitations, correspondence, copies of family Bibles, obituaries, golden wedding anniversary announcements, family history charts. So it can include a very large variety of items. And it's all going to be stemmed and organized by surname. So the way that it works is that these files are organized alphabetically by surname or last name, and then they are going to be organized alphabetically by first name. And you have separate sections for families. So there might be a section that's going to say the Adams family, and then they might have, John Adams or Wednesday Adams. Well, John is going to be first before Wednesday. Okay. So some of these items in the collection date back as far as 1901. Typically on the collection title, that's when it will usually say that the surnames files start. And while there are some materials that do date back to that far, the majority of the materials are from about 1930 to 1970. That's really the bulk of it. So even though there are some earlier stuff in there, it's really going to be that 1930 to 1970 range. These surname files were collected by archival staff. Staff from many, many years ago would save letters that they wanted to add, or wedding invitations, engagement or retirement announcements that maybe they saw in the paper, or maybe, that they received in the mail. Issues with this collection that you can find are oftentimes it's only going to cover well-known individuals. Not everybody's going to be covered. It's going to heavily cover the 1930s to the 1950s more than other decades. and minority or immigrant groups are not going to be covered as frequently. So we have a lot of people who come in, or they see surname file on our research requests, or they come in and see it and they get all excited and they think, oh, perfect, this is exactly what I've been looking for. But unfortunately, there can just be a lot of issues with that. Because it's going to cover the most well-known people. It's going to cover people who are typically going to be in the newspaper for certain time periods. And so not everybody's getting covered with a lot of frequency. So there are 3 ways that you can access surname files here at ADAH. One of those ways is through ancestry.com. Another way is through our microfilm in the research room. And then the third way is our physical archival collection. So I got 3 examples here. I wanted you to see kind of what some of these examples would look like. The first is a family Bible example. These are all 3 going to be from our microfilm. So the first is a family Bible example. You can see where it has births at the top, and then it lists out the names of the individuals and then their dates of birth. And then the middle option is a obituary for a young man who was killed during World War II. And you can see that it's got Montgomery Advertiser kind of stamped in the middle. So that tells you what newspaper it came from. And then someone hand wrote 3/17/45, which is the date that this would have come from. So that gives you an idea of how these are literally clipping files, where they've literally been clipped and then someone's had to go through and put the provenance of where this item came from. The third one is a service announcement. These were extremely popular in the 40s, 50s, and 60s during World War II, Vietnam, and Korea. So you will see these a lot throughout the surname files. And so this is an example of a young man who was injured in France during World War II. And so let's move forward. Okay, so I'm going to talk about each way that you can access the surname files, so that if any of you guys here decide that you want to start looking at these, you can do so any of the 3 ways that we're going to talk about, and hopefully you will be very prepared to do so. So first, let's talk about surname files on Ancestry. So on ancestry.com, our surname files are available, and there are 2 different collections where you can find them. One is the Alabama U.S. Surname Files Expanded from 1702 to 1981, and the second one is Alabama U.S. Surname Files 1901 to 2005. So these come from our microfilm and physical collections. So everything that's here is there, and vice versa. You're not going to find anything different in either one of those places. So it is from our source. So, but you will need, in order to access these, if you wanted to do so on Ancestry, you would need an account with them. We have public access computers here that have an account. We have an account with Ancestry that our patrons can use for free. So if you're close to the archives, or if you're already planning a trip, you're more than welcome to come to the archives here and look at our Ancestry account and look at the surname files that way. If you don't have an Ancestry.com account and you don't know if you want to get one, you could always go to your local library and see if they have an account that you could use, and you could access them there if you're unable to come to Montgomery, if it's too far away for you. So those are some ways you could access that. Here's an example of what they look like on Ancestry. So this is from the Alabama U.S. Surname Files Expanded, 1702 to 1981, and this is really exactly what it looks like with our microfilm, but this is a screenshot of what it would look like on Ancestry. So this is from the Clayton Record. It was published in 1981, and it is a golden anniversary for this couple, the Medleys. So let's see. So the Alabama U.S. Surname Files Expanded, we're going to talk about that one first. So This one comes from our microfilm in the research room, as I said before, and the surname files were microfilmed in 1984. And so what you're going to do is, this is how you would go to it. You can see here the collection title up at the top. You can see my mouse right there, Alabama U.S. Surname Files Expanded. They have a nice little place where you can input the information. You know, you could type in Carlie Burkett, and you could put in all this great info and hit search, and it may come up with some information. It may not. Typically, I try to encourage people to just start with a name. Don't try to put in all this information, birth and death and marriage, because sometimes the more information you put in, the less results you may get. So, just start with the name. Just try Carlie Burkett first and hit enter and see what happens. You might get a lot of results. Some people want to go page by page. So if you wanted to do that, you see this little browse this collection area. You would click on that for your drop down. And when you did that, you could select the letter you wanted. So we're going to select M. And then it would give you these options where then you could click on whichever one you wanted. Whoa, let me go back. There we go. So that way you can click on whichever one you wanted, and then you can go page by page. So just to go right back over that a little bit, you could search a name here if you wanted to and hit search and then see what results you would get. Or you could go page by page, just like you would in this room with the microfilm, where you can click on the drop down, select whatever letter you want to search through, and then you can pick a surname file section here where you would just know that, like, if you wanted to do medley, you would have to do the one that's MAE-MED. It should be in that one. You click there and it would take you right to it. All right, so these are just some examples that I wanted to show you so that you would, if you did decide to go through it, you would kind of know what to look for. So usually at the beginning, when you go from name to name, you'll see something like this first image here, this surname title page, where it's got Mears or Mears, where it has the different spellings. So typically you will see that first and you'll know, hey, okay, I'm on the right surname, I'm on the right last name. These are where all of my names are going to be that I'm going to need. And you can keep scrolling through. And so here, this example, this next one in the middle, is an obituary for a person with the last name Mead. This is from the surname files. And the reason that I picked this one out is to show kind of some of the problems you can have with the surname files. Is because since they're clippings, you don't always know where the information came from. It's kind of up to whomever to tell you, whoever put it in the little folder. So like we looked at the one earlier that had Montgomery Advertiser stamped and the date was handwritten in. If you look at this middle image here, there's no date or newspaper title given. So this one, you got the obituary here for Miss Pearl Mead of Russellville. And if you were looking for her, that's perfect and great, but you won't know when this was, what year, and you won't know what newspaper it came from. So if you needed to know what year she died, that could, you don't have that from this obituary. You'd have to do a little more digging to find out. This third example here is one I wanted to show you guys, where these are some that you will see fairly often in our surname files. It's a letter to our director. So this one's from 1967. Up at the top corner, you can see the date here is written 3/13/19 or 67, but we can assume it's 1967. And you can see it says, "Dear Sir," and the letter continues, and then it's got sincerely who wrote the letter. And this is from the Medlin, Medlin item, and that's because this is what the letter is about. It's about a person with that surname. But this is an example of a letter written to the director. These will often be found in here. So we're going to move on to this is the other collection that you will find on Ancestry. So we looked at that first one, which was the Surname Files Expanded. That is from our microfilm that's here in the research room. The other surname file collection for our Alabama that is on Ancestry is also from us, but it's from our physical collection. And this is a little confusing, but we'll kind of talk about this a little more later on in this presentation to kind of help you better understand the difference. So as you can see, you can search here just like we would on the last one, where you could put in a name. You could put in Carlie Burkett here and hit search and see what comes up. Or you can browse the collection and you can kind of click one of these and say, okay, perfect. I really did want to look at Bean through Branham. That's going to be the exact surname I'm looking for. I'm going to find it there. You click there, you can go page by page. So this information comes from our physical collection. It covers A through Z surname files. And what this is while the one we looked at before is microfilm that was filmed in 1984. These are items that were added after 1984. So these items, the reason why they're different and they're not included in the previous one is because these were physical items that were included after 1984 when the previous was microfilmed, because we still add to this. So you can see that, and then it gives you boxes numbers. So for example, if you found something here that you really wanted to see and it's not going to be any different on the computer than it will be in person, but if you just wanted to see it in person, these SG numbers are how you would locate it. You would give that to us and we would go get it for you. So let's look at some examples. So some examples of these surname files on Ancestry are going to be, you can see here, this first one is a folder and it's got Aaron-Arant. And these are going to be, items are going to be in here for you to look through. And so they're all going to be arranged by folder. This is how it would have originally been done before it was microfilmed. And so that's going to be kind of like that title page that you saw earlier. And so this middle example here, and you can see how this is clearly like physical documents. This is what they would look like in person. This middle one here is where someone is kind of written out on their own family history. And I like how at the top it says, leave it archives and history building. And then this one over here is from the Wetumpka Herald from November 14th, 1985. And it's talking about a local man is going to appear in the television show North and South. So, and that's from the Adams folder. All right. So let's talk about some pros and cons. So that's what you would access with Ancestry as far as how you would access the Ancestry surname files. And so now we're going to talk about some pros and cons. So some pros, it's great for users like to do their own research that cannot physically come into our facility and that they want a keyword search or page by page. It's fairly easy and simple. And once you know how to do it, it can be quite easy for you to access those. Some cons are that it requires access to ancestry.com, and not everybody has that. And also it can cause lots of confusion for some users. Some tips and tricks. Users can search for one name and have a hard time finding related records. So sometimes you need to manually search. So some of the confusion that it causes is many years ago when I first started working here, we actually did not know that Ancestry had uploaded the surname files onto their website. So we would get people who would call and they would say, hey, I found this article for this gentleman and his name's John Doe, and I would like to know where the rest of the records come from. And we would have the most difficult time figuring out where it came from, because what happens is Ancestry uses computer software to kind of figure out what words are where, and that's how you can keyword search and it will pick up things. But the way the surname files are arranged is that, like, for example, you can see this newspaper article here is of Tallulah Bankhead. And so you would then assume that this would be in the Tallulah Bankhead file, be under Bankhead as the surname. And that's definitely true. But this gentleman here, John Emery, if you're really looking for him, you wouldn't necessarily know maybe to look in her stuff, and vice versa. So some people may have been typing and looking for John Emery and finding this and then thinking, well, why is all this stuff about Tallulah Bankhead and not about John Emery? So it used to cause a lot of confusion, but those calls seem to have gone down. Some people have seemed to kind of been able to figure it out. But this was just an example of that I wanted to show you guys here. This little box that I've got highlighted here that says 0062, this is on the microfilm. It's also on Ancestry. And so typically, if you do stumble across something like this, I try to tell people to make note of whatever that number is at the bottom, because if they were looking for John Emery and they accidentally stumbled upon Tallulah, they can make their way back to that. They could figure out, hey, I need to go to Bankhead and I need to go to 0062. It's going to be in numerical order. The page before this one is 61. The page after that one's going to be 63. So, all right. So now we're going to talk about the surname files on microfilm in the research room. So a lot of this is going to be some of the same information. It's going to look very familiar because it's the same as that Ancestry database. So this collection was microfilmed in 1984. There are roughly 500 reels of 16 milliliter film. So it's a pretty big collection. It's quite large. It's the exact same material that you'll see on the Ancestry.com expanded collection. The material is self-serve in the research room. So you come in and you grab it yourself and you can put it on the reel yourself. Obviously, if you need help doing any of that, we will help you. If you need help using the microfilm readers or figuring out where the microfilm is, we will definitely help you do that. And then if you can print or download images from our digital readers. And if you need help doing that, we will help you do that as well. So some more examples here. You've got a surname title page here. It's read and it says family info, A through D. I picked this one because I wanted you to see they're all going to have their own title page for the surname, but I wanted you to see one that said family because some of these surname files will have a family section first where it'll have like read family info A through D. Then presumably there will be read family info E through maybe J, and then it'll have another one for K through Z. And then you would have the rest of the read family surname files where it would just start with kind of what we've been seeing. That family info usually are like family tree charts, could be family Bibles. They're usually things like that. Some of that correspondence. It's not so much, it's more centered on genealogy specifically instead of just individual articles about people. So this example here, I wanted to show you guys. It's from the Sun American, this art newspaper, and the article was published on September 21st, 1930, and it is for the Reed surname. And it is someone is doing their genealogy, and they are just writing and publishing in the paper. If you know anything about any of these surnames, please help me out. So some pros and cons to the surname files on microfilm. Some pros are it's easy to use and access. You can be assured you are seeing all the images and no glitches. And then cons, you have to be at ADAH to view it. You have to be here and come here. Physical copies are 25 cents each, and downloads require a jump drive. So downloads are free, but you've got to have a jump drive. Physical copies are $1.25 a page, and there's no keyword searching, so you got to do it manually. You have to do it the old-fashioned way. Some more examples here. You've got an example from the Anniston Star / Montgomery Advertiser. You can see where originally this article was written in the Anniston Star, but the Montgomery Advertiser published it. It's from 1949, and it's about a man named Edgar Ernest Reed. He's being appointed to the Education Board. This one over here is for Augusta Randolph Reed, and it's a biographical sketch where someone is filling out information about this person, and they're kind of telling whatever they know about that person. I was trying to find you different examples where you could see how different things could be in the surname files, as opposed to just obituaries and wedding announcements. So some more examples here. You've got the Mobile Career Girls. You can see it still is going to give information about where it came from. Here's another letter to the director. And then here is another one from the Montgomery Advertiser where someone has been injured in a crash. And so, these are typical examples of what you would see in the surname files. So the last way that you can look for surname files here is through the physical collection. So the information that was microfilmed before 1984, that's how we would really prefer you to look at it. And the physical, what we would let you see in the physical format is going to be the stuff that was added after 1984. This is still available, and it is here available at our facility, and it's got to be pulled by staff. So you have to fill out a call slip for us to go get it for you. We add to it continually. It's about 36 boxes today. And it's under, if you go to the catalog, you could type in Alabama Department of Archives and History, Public Information Subject Files, Surname Files, and it would come up. You would see the finding aid, and you would be able to select the box that you would need for your search. Here's an example of what the box looks like. You can see it says Public Information Subject Files, Surname Files, Gun to Heron, SG002633. And so let's see what's in there. This is what it looks like on the inside when you're looking from an aerial view. That's what the box looks like. You can see all the folders and all the material inside the folders. So some pros and cons of this is its physical material's a pro. Some people really prefer physical material over online or microfilm. Some people don't. Might be a pro to some, a con to others, but and it has items that are more recently added. Cons, it's older material that is doesn't necessarily mean richer content. The older material in this case is better, the stuff that's microfilmed. This stuff isn't always going to be as much. It's not as plentiful. There's not as much information as there was in the past. It's not as accessible as online and microfilm, and it can only be seen here at ADAH, and it's more time consuming to search through. So some examples are, these are going to be in folders like we saw earlier. And some examples here are the Hamilton Surname Files. There are 3 newspaper articles. There was no newspaper title given, some dates handwritten on cutouts, and there's one pamphlet from the Mobile Public Library. So this was all in one little folder. As you can see here, you've got like an image here of a newspaper clipping. Like I said, you can see a date, 1983, but I have no clue where this article came from. It doesn't say. Over here, it's kind of the same situation as this one up top. I know that it deals with a person named James Hamilton, but I don't know what year it was published or in what paper. This one here, Boyd Family Descendants, someone underlined the name Hamilton, and they wrote some information here. But that's really all we've got. We don't really have anything else. We don't know when that was published or from what paper. And then here is the pamphlet that I talked about mobile authors. This was kind of my favorite find in that folder. This was put in the folder because it was written by a person named Peter Joseph Hamilton, and it is published from the Mobile Public Library. And so I thought it was pretty interesting. So it was in there. If you look back on the previous slide, no. There we go. The blue right here, that's that pamphlet. When I was just making copies of it, it turned into black and white. Then in the next folder was this big book. This was actually a book, this Hardy Families in Alabama, Florida, and Georgia Census and Soundex. This was actually a little bound book. And this information's great. It's information that you can get off Ancestry or FamilySearch.org. But it condenses all the Hardy family members into one booklet instead of you having to manually search for them. But this was another item. So these are kind of examples of the items that you'll find in there today and the ones that are in the physical section. So a census booklet and these pamphlets and newspaper articles. So, all right. So that kind of wraps up the surname file collection. And if you have any questions, I would love to hear them. I'll do my best to answer. I hope that you guys will come in and see them. The Alabama Department of Archives and History, we are open Monday through Saturday, 8:30 to 4:30. Our building is, but the research room is only open Tuesday through Saturday, 8:30 to 4:30. So come and see us. If you're coming to the research room, don't come on Monday. We're closed to the public. And so are there any questions?
Thank you so much, Carlie Anne. Thank you for telling us about the surname files and for kind of filling us in on the 3 different types of ways you can kind of get to them. Now, for all of you, please, if you have questions, put them in the comments so we can get to them. But to kind of kickstart things off, you mentioned all 3 of them, and you gave great pros and cons for how they would be useful. As a reference archivist, what would you recommend as the form to start with? If you're just starting off with research, which way do you think is the easiest one to kind of get your feet wet with the surname files?
I would say I kind of mostly enjoy using the microfilm personally, but I think that the Ancestry version is very easy. It's very simple. You can do it from your house. When I'm doing research requests for people, often I'll find myself more than most times just doing it on Ancestry instead of going to pull the microfilm and doing it that way. So I would say probably the easiest is Ancestry. The one that I enjoy the most is probably the microfilm. I just like using the microfilm.
It is kind of fun to use a microfilm.
Yeah.
And then you also mentioned that there may sometimes be some things in the physical version that weren't microfilmed. Is that also true for Ancestry? Were some of the things not also transferred over to there? Like the occasional?
Yeah, it used to be the case because I believe for a long time, the only thing that was available on Ancestry from our microfilm was like letters A through J for a long time. And then it became A through S. But now I believe it's A through Z. It's everything.
Perfect.
However, sometimes there are glitches. So, sometimes just you maybe need to refresh. But if you look at the microfilm, you can be guaranteed that this is everything, 100%. There's no glitches. Nothing's missing. But there shouldn't be anything missing for Ancestry, but things happen.
You never know. Yeah. So it's like a good way, maybe start with Ancestry, get some things down, then come in, do the microfilm, and if necessary, then we can also go to physical. But that would be a good kind of way to kind of get started. Like I always think it's great to hear a recommendation from someone who does research a lot to be able to kind of help people know where they want to go.
Yeah.
We have a question. Would deeds be in the surname files?
No. No, the only way a deed would be in the surname file would be that if a deed transaction was written in the newspaper and then someone clipped it out and put it in there. But I've never seen one in there.
So that would be a separate way to look. You need to look somewhere else for the deeds.
Yeah, if you wanted to look for deed records, I would definitely suggest like going to, you can see if you can come here and see if we have that county's deed records. Typically we have them sometimes before 1900. We don't usually have anything after 1900 for the counties. Or you could go to that county and see if they have it there.
Perfect. We have from YouTube online version. I'm assuming this is about if there are the online version would be Ancestry, correct? If you're
Yes,
looking for
yes.
something online for this, then Ancestry is the only option that's online, not in this building.
Correct.
So that's where you're going to want to go for online.
Yes.
Sorry, I was thinking about just where I could go with some of this too. So the last question that I think that I have with the surname files is, obviously, people might know what name they want to start with, and they may go kind of there. But have you found that people might go in thinking one thing, and then they find that there's another person with the same surname that they should kind of like take a look at? So is that one of the things, looking at that broad search instead of narrowing it down? Is that another kind of benefit of that, is being able to kind of see all these people with the same surname?
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of times some of the bigger drawbacks for researchers, especially genealogists, is that they really can really pigeonhole themselves in their research. And sometimes it's better to cast a wide net. And then instead of saying, I can only look for, this person. So yeah, I would definitely suggest, if you're going to use surname files, don't be so focused on trying to find out if there's anything for a person named, John Adams. Look through all of the Adams, because you may find an article about his wife or his son or someone else. So you may not find anything for him, but you may find someone related to him. So yeah, cast a wide net and just search through the whole surname file for everybody instead of just that one person.
And that way you'd be able to kind of figure out how you see them all connected, and you might find something you weren't even knowing that you could find. Excellent. Oh, we have here a quick reference to how to navigate files on Ancestry. Do you have somewhere quick of where you can send somebody for Ancestry?
I don't have anything. I don't think we've done a presentation on that. I don't believe so.
I think that might be a great presentation to have, is kind of like how to use Ancestry. So thank you, Jenny Lee. That might be a great research rundown to have. Excellent. Thank you so much, Carlie Anne.
Thank you. Hey, Andy.